everyone, and welcome back to Legend Times' YouTube channel. It's been a while, but we're trying to get our YouTube channel back up and running again so that we can chat about all the books we've got coming out and all of the books that we've signed up and announced on our social media, and can actually talk you through them, can have some chats with authors when they're in the office, and we can also post full-length videos of another book podcast that I host with so many wonderful guests every other Monday. And we've already got some amazing virtual recordings for some remote podcast recordings we've done. And then I'd also love to get some in-office content as well to be able to share with you on our YouTube channel. So that's going to start from today, hopefully. The latest guest that we've had on another book podcast is the amazing, legendary Kate Moss. And she was on to talk about The Ghost Ship, which is her newest novel. It came out on the 6th of July. It's part of the Joubert Family Chronicles series, and it's number 3, although it is also a standalone novel, so you can read it without having read the other 2 and you'll completely understand what's going on. I finished it in literally a week. It was so fantastic and compelling, and I just loved reading about 2 female pirates, and to know that they could have been there at that time, and the fact that they're somewhat loosely based or inspired by living female pirates back in the time is just so great to know when you're reading it. And I was talking to Kate on the podcast, and she said that in Pirates of the Caribbean, Keira Knightley's character is actually based on real pirates, a real female pirate. And that's just so fun to know in the back of your mind when you're reading it. And the podcast with Kate was absolutely fascinating. I love talking to her about both her book, but also just her time in the industry. She's led such an incredible life within publishing and made such a difference with founding Women's Prize for Fiction, and this year the submissions have opened for Women's Prize for Non-Fiction, and also just asking her about her reading process, Moss on a Monday, which is her YouTube channel, and just so many other kind of amazing things that she's done in the industry. So I'll leave the link in the description box and you can listen to her episode now. And we also had the wonderful Georgina Moore on the podcast, who wrote the Sunday Times bestseller The Garnet Girls. This is such a unique novel. It's about 3 girls and their mother, and just all of the different relationships you can have within a family. You love them, you get annoyed at them, you want to shake them and tell them what to do, but it's just so real and enjoyable, and you just feel like you're part of the family, and all of them have quirks that are just so relatable that it is so enjoyable to read. And my chat with Georgina was amazing. But then also Carrie, one of our fiction editors, she had a chat with Georgina as well, which was the second part of the podcast episode. And they spoke about kind of the industry and what it was like to be represented as like an older woman, because the Garnet Girl's mother is like a main character. Margot, if anyone asks, Margot is the character. She is the book. She's got a very strong presence in the novel. And you know, it's just how older women are presented within fiction is such an interesting conversation that they have between themselves. And we've also had Fiona Valpy on the podcast to talk about The Cypress Maze, and this came out, or is coming out, depending on when this video is posted, on the 18th of July, and I'm so excited for this one to be released, because this was just, it was heartbreaking, it was emotional, but there was just that glimmer of hope throughout it that made it so readable and somewhat enjoyable, and you just fell in love with so many of the characters. And it is actually inspired by a true story of a woman owning a villa and taking in sort of refugees from the war in World War II, and it's set in this beautiful Italian countryside villa, and it's just it's so lovely to read. If you're a fan of World War II fiction, I just couldn't recommend it more. And Fiona Valpy also put me on some fantastic biscuits that you'll have to listen about when the episode comes out in a couple of weeks. So make sure you keep an eye out for that one. And then, while we haven't had Amelia Hart on the podcast, I just thought I'd mention her book while we're talking about non-legend books. And it's Wayward. Now, this is my copy. I haven't read it yet, but we have something every month called the Book Blogger Spotlight on our Instagram, and that's where we just spotlight a bookstagrammer whose account we love and who posts such great content, which is actually very hard to pick because we've got so many people that we follow that just provide the best content and the best reviews. But 2 in a row, it was Ruby Reads and Dan Bassett from Waterstones. He's Eris Biblio, I think, on Instagram. I'll also put their ats below. But they both picked this as their book of the year. So now I'm really, really interested to read it. Joanna Cannon, Rosie Andrews and Sun Yu Dean have all endorsed it. So I feel like this is going to be a good one. So I can't wait to get into this. So if any of you have read it and agree with Ruby and Dan that this is the best book of the past year, then do let us know. And we want our YouTube channel to be a mixture of non-legend books and legend books, because we have so many wonderful authors on the podcast and we work with so many wonderful authors that aren't our authors necessarily every day. So it's great to talk about their books as well as our own. But then moving on to our own, another beautiful cover we've got here is Blue Skin Gods. The paperback came out earlier this year. And it's just it's a stunning cover, but it's also a stunning book. I'll read you a bit of the blurb. In Tamil Nadu, India, a boy named Kalki, born with blue skin, believes he is the Hindu god Vishnu and that he can perform miracles. The truth, though, is much darker. And I won't read any more because I think that's a great incentive to go and read it. But it is actually just a stunning novel, and S.J. Sindhu, the author, is such an incredible writer. And it's just one that I can't stop recommending, even though it came out in February. I will recommend it all year long. Now, my collection at home is not nearly as extensive as the one at work, obviously, and a couple of the copies that I have here are proof copies because I brought them home to either read or to take photos of for our social media. So this is just what I have at the moment, but they are also fantastic books. So next up we have the final copy of The Brink. I love this cover. I think this is such a striking, incredible cover, and obviously reminds me so much of the cover of the film for The Breakup with Jennifer Aniston and Vince Vaughn, which is a film that I love and still watch to this day, even though it came out years ago. But The Brink is fantastic. It is sold as an addictive love story in reverse, is how it's told. And it's so well written, and it's just one of those ones you could read in 1 or 2 sittings. It's so great, and it's like the perfect summer read for anyone going on holiday. It's a great one. And then next up, this is one of the ones that sadly I don't have the final cover, even though the final cover is gorgeous. That's in the office. This is my proof copy, but you can still get the idea. This is gold foil on the final copy for anyone wanting to order it. It looks stunning. And this is Liam Brown's Evergreens. Now, I'm so glad to see it, but we've recently had the blog tour for it, and everyone has just said how incredible this book is, given it 5 out of 5, and said how much they love it and how heartbreakingly beautiful it was. And the kind of question at the heart of the story is, if you could stay young forever, would you? Every living thing must die. No one is disputing that. But the how and the when, now that's worth discussing. And what if you could stay young forever? What if you never had to grow old? And one of the characters is sort of debating with that question and has to find out what they would lose should they want to live forever. It's such a fantastic book, and it's available now. It came out in June, so it's on Amazon, and I'll link all of the books that are out now below as well. So now this one isn't out yet, but it comes out on the 20th of July. It's called Invisible Strings by Naledi Mashishi, and I've been shouting about this all over Instagram, on my own Instagram, on the work Instagram, just everywhere. I love this book so much. I think it's so fantastic, and she's a debut author. We partnered up with another publisher this year called Blackbird. They're based in South Africa, and so we have taken 3 of their books, repackaged them and published them under Legend Press in the UK. And this is one of the books. This is the first book that we will publish of Blackbird this year. Invisible Strings is an incredible story about a young girl called Theto who discovers that she has powers at a very young age. And as she gets a little older, still, just a child, 9 years old, a pastor called Solomon discovers also that she has these powers, and he is not currently very popular in his church. He cannot get people in attendance, and he decides to pass off her powers as his own. And the fallout from it and the family dynamics of Theto, her mother, her grandmother, it's just, I couldn't put it down. I just absolutely loved reading this. It was so incredible, and again, this is one that anyone that listens to me, I will recommend this book. And actually, the next one I have is a proof copy of No Bee From Here, which is the second Blackbird book that we've got. And Natasha, the author, came into the office the other day, and it was so nice to talk to her about her book and the process of writing it, and how she felt like the reception was in Africa, in Zambia and in South Africa where it got published. She's from Zambia, and the book is partially based in Zambia. I'll read you some of the blurb. From the blazing streets of the Brixton riots to multi-party elections in Zambia and glitzy Independence Day celebrations in Lagos comes a heartwarming story that breathes life into the modern-day result of post-colonial Africa and 20th century migration. It's such an incredible book, and also such a quick read. I always see those videos saying, you know, what's a really short book that you can just absolutely dive into, and this is one of those. It's just really beautifully written, and I can't wait for this to come out, and can't wait to see the final copies of it as well. It comes out on the 7th of September, so that's one to look out for in a few months, and I'll make sure to have final copies all over our social media and hopefully on our YouTube channel as well when we have them in the office right before publication. And last but not least, Lilith. This is our proof copy, obviously, because we haven't got the final copies in yet. But this has been one that's drummed up quite a lot of hype on social media, and we totally understand why. This is an absolutely incredible book. I just cannot talk about it enough. I cannot rave about it enough. I absolutely love Nikki's writing. Her first book, On Wilder Seas, was incredible. I read it in the 2020 lockdown in my garden, and I must have read it in like the same day, 2 sittings, had a break for food, and that was it. It was just so incredible, and that was based on the first woman on the Golden Hind. It was like based on a true story of this woman that had been on this boat and never been recognised. Everyone knew Frances Drake, the captain of the ship, but no one really knew that she was on it, and kind of it's an imagination of what she would have seen and done, and it's such an amazing read. And then she comes out with Lilith, just another incredible book, and we follow Lilith from the beginning of time through 6,000 years, where she just gives voices to all these women that have been wronged by history and myth, like Jezebel and Mary Magdalene, and she just gives them their side of the story as well as showing her own. So I'll just read you a bit of the blurb. In the Garden of Eden at the beginning of time, an outrageous lie is born, that women are inferior. Lilith and Adam are equal and happy in the Garden of Eden, but when Adam decides Lilith should submit to his will and lie beneath him, she refuses and is banished forever from paradise. And I just can't sell people on it enough. It's incredible. And the cover as well. The cover looks exactly like this, except it says Lilith here, in case you haven't seen it on our social media. And it is just the most fantastic read. I just gush about it all the time. So we're so looking forward to this coming out in October, and to having Nikki Marmory be able to fully talk about her book everywhere rather than trying to keep as much of it a secret as possible. And yeah, that's just one to add to the TBR now, because it is just so amazing. Another one that I don't have here that I would love to talk about is the Seven Skins of Esther Wilding. We had to push the pub date from the 6th of July to the 24th of July, but that's just to make sure that we got the cover absolutely perfect and had this incredible holographic foil on the front that we're so excited to see. And the book should be in soon, and then we'll be able to get them out to everyone that's ordered one already. And it comes out just 2 weeks before the Amazon Prime TV series of Holly's first book, The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart, comes out on Amazon Prime, and it's got Sigourney Weaver in it. The show looks incredible. I'm so looking forward to watching it. And Holly's first book, The Lost Flowers of Alice Hart, is another amazing read. And The Seven Skins of Esther Wilding is not a follow-on. It's a completely separate novel, but it's just as amazing, just as incredible. The way Holly writes and the way she speaks as well. We've done a podcast with her that will be released also on the 24th of July. But the way she talks about life and love and grief is just unlike anything I've read or listened to before. I mean, it's absolutely intoxicating listening to her and reading her words. she just writes like no one else I've ever known. So I'm so looking forward to everyone finally being able to grab their hands on that one. And the blog tour is currently going on for it. So if you want to have a look at anyone's reviews for it, you can go onto our Instagram and find out who's taking part and have a look at their reviews. And I think that's all for today. I'll make sure to hop back on in a week's time or so and show you any new books we've got in or any exciting announcements that we've got coming up. So until then, I hope you have a great week.